You can read a room the second you walk into it, not because you studied psychology, but because at some point in your life, you had to. You notice patterns in people's behavior that others miss completely, not because you're gifted, but because missing those patterns once came with consequences. This is called traumatic intelligence, a cognitive skill set your brain didn't choose, but built to survive environments that were unpredictable, emotionally complex, or unsafe. And here's what makes this real. Not just a theory. Research in developmental psychology shows that when a child grows up in uncertain environments, the brain adapts early. The amygdala, your threat detection system, becomes more sensitive. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making and pattern recognition, becomes more active in social analysis. Meaning, your brain literally trained itself to read people faster, deeper, and more accurately than average. Let's break this down into signs. Sign 1. You can hold contradictions. Most people can't. You understand something most people struggle with, that someone can love you and hurt you, be kind and still be dangerous, have good intentions and still cause damage. Most people need things to be simple. You don't, because your brain had to process conflicting realities early on. Developmental psychology calls this cognitive flexibility under stress. Instead of breaking when things didn't make sense, your mind adapted. You learn to hold multiple truths at the same time, without needing immediate resolution. And that gives you a level of psychological depth most people never develop. Sign 2. You predict emotional shifts before they happen. You can feel when someone's mood is about to change. Not after, before. A slight shift in their tone, a pause that lasts half a second too long, the way their posture tightens before they speak. Most people don't even register these signals, but you do. Because your brain was trained to detect micro-patterns in behavior, the kind that signal what's coming next. Neuroscience calls this hypervigilance. Not anxiety, not overthinking. Pattern recognition, running in real time. At some point, your brain learned, if I can predict this early, I can stay safe. And it never turned that ability off. Sign 3. You understand pain on a different level. You can sit with someone's struggle without trying to fix it, without minimizing it, without turning away, because you understand something deeply, what it feels like to go through something and not be understood. Psychology refers to this as post-traumatic growth, where difficult experiences expand your emotional capacity instead of shutting it down. You don't just feel empathy, you hold space for it, and that kind of understanding is rare. Sign 4. You become calm when everything falls apart. When situations get chaotic, something strange happens. You don't panic, you focus. While others freeze or react emotionally, you shift into problem-solving mode, step by step, move by move, almost like you've been here before, because in a way, you have. Psychologists describe this as stress adaptation or stress inoculation. When the brain is repeatedly exposed to high-pressure environments early in life, it doesn't just get overwhelmed, it learns the pattern. So instead of seeing chaos as something shocking, your nervous system recognizes it as familiar. And familiarity creates control. That's why in moments where others feel lost, you become precise. Not because you're cold, but because your brain learned, stay calm, figure it out, survive. Sign 5. Compulsive human analysis. You analyze why people do what they do, almost involuntarily. You replay conversations and search for meaning behind actions that others don't even register. This isn't overthinking. It's a deep psychological insight forged by years of trying to understand unpredictable behavior. You became a student of human nature because understanding people felt essential to your well-being. Sign 6. The burden of hyperindependence. You don't wait for people to rescue you. You build solutions quietly and alone. This self-reliance often surprises people, but it's a developmental default. When support wasn't reliable, your brain internalized resourcefulness. To you, dependence feels like a risk, so competence became your armor. Sign 7. You know what people need before they ask. You can sense when someone needs space, when they need reassurance, when something feels off, even if they haven't said a word. And most of the time, you're right. This level of awareness is often linked to something called compulsive caregiving in attachment psychology. At some point, your environment required you to stay tuned into other people's emotional states. Because if you could manage their emotions, you could reduce conflict, tension, or harm. So your brain adapted. It started scanning constantly. Are they okay? What do they need? How do I keep this stable? And over time, That became automatic. The result? You developed an almost instinctive ability to understand people on a level they don't even understand themselves. But there's a cost. You became responsible for emotional atmospheres that were never supposed to be yours. Sign 8. Your brain maps escape routes without you realizing. Every environment you enter, you scan it. Where are the exits? Who's where? What could go wrong? You might not even notice you're doing it, but your brain does, constantly. This is called environmental hyper-awareness, a survival mechanism where the brain builds real-time maps of safety, risk, and exit strategies. Not because you're paranoid, but because at some point in your life, being unprepared wasn't an option. So your brain installed a system. Always know how to leave. Always know where you stand. And even now, long after those environments are gone, that system is still running. Sign 9. Accepting help feels complicated. When someone offers help, your first instinct isn't relief, it's analysis. Why are they helping? What do they want? What's the cost? Not because you're negative, because you're trained. Psychology calls this adaptive distrust. If support in the past came with conditions, or inconsistency, or consequences, your brain learned a simple rule: nothing is free. So now, even genuine kindness gets filtered through caution. And while that can feel isolating, it also means something important. When you finally do trust someone, it's not shallow. It's deliberate, tested, real. Sign 10. You get exhausted by things that don't tire others. A normal social interaction, a small conflict, a crowded environment, and suddenly you feel drained, not a little tired, mentally exhausted. Because you're not just experiencing the moment, you're analyzing it in real time, reading expressions, tracking tone shifts, predicting reactions, managing your own responses, all at once. Research on cognitive load shows that constant environmental scanning consumes massive mental energy. So while others are simply present, your brain is running multiple background processes simultaneously. That's why you need more time alone, more time to reset. Not because something is wrong with you, but because your brain is doing more work than most people realize. Here's the part most people ignore. This intelligence came at a cost. The awareness is real, the depth is real, the abilities are real, but so is the effort it took to build them. This isn't about glorifying trauma. It's about recognizing what your mind did with what it was given. I'll be sharing more videos like this on psychology and self-understanding. Subscribe if this content resonates with you.